Dear students, welcome to this lecture on nationalism and its critical assessment with a special focus on works of Benedict Anderson, Anthony D. Smith, and various other schools of nationalism. Throughout this lecture, we will explore the key objectives of understanding nationalism and its prominent schools, as well as delving into the concepts of Anderson and Smith. Given this, the first objective of this lecture is to provide a comprehensive explanation of nationalism and its various schools of thought. Afterwards, I will examine the different perspectives and theories that have emerged over the time and how they have shaped our understanding of this complex phenomenon. Next, I explore the works of Benedict Anderson on the concept of nationalism. Similarly, I will also examine the various works of Anthony D. Smith and explore his concept of nationalism. Finally, we will undertake a critical evaluation of nationalism with a specific focus on the works of Anderson and Smith. We will examine the strengths and weaknesses of their theories and how they have contributed to our understanding of nationalism. Let me begin with the concept and meaning of nationalism. Nationalism is a multifaceted and intricate concept that has been the subject of much debate and discussion. It is important to note that the meanings and interpretations of nationalism can vary depending on the context, culture, and historical era. The implications of nationalism can be both constructive and destructive, depending on how it is manifested and the goals it seeks to achieve. At its core, nationalism refers to a strong sense of loyalty and devotion to one's nation or country. This can manifest in various ways, including a shared language, culture, history, and political system. Its meaning and concept can be analyzed with reference to Professor Hans Cohen. He defines the concept as a state of mind in which the supreme loyalty of the individual is felt to be due to the nation state. Further, Cohen adds that it is living and active corporate will. It is this will that we call nationalism, a state of mind inspiring the large majority of people and claiming to inspire all its members. Professor Kenneth Robert Minogue, an Australian political theorist, describes nationalism as a set of ideas, a form of self-expression by which a certain kind of political excitement can be communicated from an elite to masses. While Cambridge Encyclopedia defines the concept of nationalism as a political doctrine which views the nation as the principal unit of political organization. Underlying this is the assumption that human beings hold the characteristic of nationality with which they identify culturally, economically, and politically. According to Professor C.J.H. Hayes, nationalism is a modern emotional fusion, an exaggeration of two phenomena, nationality and patriotism. Louis L. Sinder defines nationalism as a product of political, economic, social, and intellectual factors at a certain stage in history, is a condition of mind, feeling, or sentiment of a group of people living in a well-defined geographical area, speaking a common language, possessing a literature in which the aspirations of the nation have been expressed, attached to common traditions and common customs, venerating its own heroes, and in some case having a common religion. Nationality is not an inborn characteristic. The individual's feeling that he belongs to a nation is the result of a continuous process of social learning and habit forming. Nationality, in this sense, need not be a political entity. It's primarily a cultural phenomenon, although it often takes political form. While nationalism can bring people together and foster a sense of belonging, it is also often associated with negative consequences such as exclusionary policies, xenophobia, and violence. Many nationalist movements have been associated with political repression, ethnic cleansing, and even genocidal campaigns. In addition, nationalism can take on different forms depending on historical circumstances and the specific cultural and political context of a nation. While some forms of nationalism prioritize inclusivity and diversity, others can become exclusive and intolerant, leading to conflict and division within a society. As such, it is crucial for political leaders and scholars and citizens alike to understand the complex nature of nationalism in order to promote inclusive policies and prevent the negative consequences associated with it. Thus, nationalism is a multifaceted concept that cannot be comprehensively defined in one or two sentences. It is a complex interplay of various factors, including race, language, religion, traditions, history, geography, and war. Therefore, it is not fruitful to attempt to define nationalism in simplest terms. Nonetheless, in a widely accepted conceptual understanding, nationalism is described as a feeling, loyalty, or sympathy that holds a group of people together through shared institutions and culture, thus creating unity among them. It has a rich history and has played a significant role in shaping the world we live in today. Its enduring influence is a testament to its power and importance as an ideology. The origin of nationalism as a distinct ideology and social phenomenon can be traced back to the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The emergence of nationalism was closely tied to historical context of Europe during this period, characterized by the decline of traditional empires, the rise of modern nation states, and social transformations brought about by the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. The French Revolution played a significant role in shaping the early development of nationalism. It introduced the ideas of popular sovereignty, equality, and citizenship, challenging the existing order of monarchies and aristocracies. The French Revolution ignited a sense of collective identity among the French people based on the idea of the nation as a sovereign political community. Another important factor in the origin of nationalism was the impact of Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon's military campaigns spread the revolutionary ideals of French Revolution across Europe and ignited a sense of national consciousness and resistance in the conquered territories. People began to identify themselves with their language, culture, and shared history, leading to the growth of national movements and aspirations for self-determination. Intellectual movements such as Romanticism also played a significant role in the development of nationalism. Romantic thinkers emphasized the emotional and cultural aspects of identity, celebrating the uniqueness of different cultures, languages, and traditions. They idealized the nation as an organic community rooted in shared cultural heritage, and their ideas influenced the emerging nationalist movements. The concept of nationalism was further popularized by influential thinkers such as Johann Gottlieb Fichte, Johann Herder, and Joseph Mazzini. Fichte, a German philosopher, argued for the cultural and linguistic unity of German people, promoting a vision of united German nation. Herder, an Enlightenment philosopher, emphasized the importance of folk culture and popular traditions in shaping national identity. Mazzini, an Italian patriot, advocated for the unification of Italy and the establishment of an Italian nation state. The mid-19th century witnessed a wave of nationalist movements across Europe, fueled by various factors such as cultural revival, political aspirations, and resistance to foreign rule. These movements sought to establish or assert the political and cultural autonomy of different nations, leading to the formation of new nation states such as Germany and Italy. The 20th century witnessed the rise of anti-colonial nationalism in Asia, Africa, and Latin America as countries sought independence from European colonial powers. Overall, the origin of nationalism can be attributed to a combination of historical, political, intellectual, and cultural factors that emerged during the late 18th and early 19th centuries in Europe. It was a response to the changing social, political, and economic landscape of the time and continues to shape the world in various ways to this day. There are several schools of thought or perspectives within the study of nationalism, as we discuss later in the lecture. These schools provide different theoretical frameworks and approach to understanding nationalism. These schools of nationalism provide different lenses through which scholars and researchers analyze and understand the complexities of nationalism. Let me begin with the works of Benedict Anderson and Anthony D. Smith on the concept of nationalism. In evaluating both Smith and Anderson's perspective on nationalism, it is important to recognize the limitations of their theories. While Smith highlights the importance of cultural heritage and Anderson emphasizes the role of collective imagination, both scholars arguably overlook the complex interplay of political, economic, and social factors in the formation and maintenance of nations. A more comprehensive understanding of nationalism requires considering a range of factors, including historical context, power dynamics, and the agency of individuals and groups within the nation-building process. Anthony D. Smith and his concept of nationalism. Anthony David Smith was a prominent British social anthropologist and scholar known for his extensive work in the field of nationalism studies. His work has been instrumental in shaping our understanding of this complex phenomenon. Smith argued that the nations are not only political entities but also social and cultural communities with deep historical roots. He postulated that the nationalism arises from a sense of shared ethnic or cultural identity, often linked to a shared historical experience, language, religion, or cultural heritage. These symbols and myths often have their roots in a nation's history, language, and culture. In his view, nationalism is a product of interaction between the collective memories, myths, symbols, and traditions of a particular community. One of Smith's most important contributions was his distinction between civic and ethnic nationalism. According to Smith, civic nationalism is based on a shared commitment to shared political values and principles such as democracy, individual rights, and the rule of law. It emphasizes the inclusive nature of citizenship and can accommodate different ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds. On the other hand, Smith argued that ethnic nationalism is based on a shared cultural or ethnic heritage. Now, let me do a critical analysis of Smith's notion of nationalism. Anthony Smith's concept of nationalism is the subject of significant debate and critical evaluation. Although Smith's work has contributed to an understanding of nationalism, it is important to approach his ideas with caution and examine their strengths and weaknesses. To do this, we first discuss the debates surrounding his definition of nation. Anthony D. Smith is not entirely consistent in his approach to nation, at least as far as his definition is concerned. A review of his earlier publications shows that he focuses on the enduring components of the nation, but also takes different positions in his attempts at definition. In his popular book, National Identity, which was published in 1991, Smith formulates his classic definition of the nation as a named human population sharing a historical territory, common myths and historical memories, a common mass, a public culture, a common economy, and common legal rights and duties for all stock members. And in his article, When is a Nation, which was published in 2002, Smith attempts to define the ideal type, a term he regularly uses in his subsequent publications. He defines the nation as a named community with a historical territory, shared myths and memories, a shared public culture, and shared laws and customs. However, shortly after the publication of When is a Nation, Gabernow, a sociologist at Cambridge University, analyzed three changes that could be observed in Smith's definition of nation. The first is the mass character of public culture was eliminated. Second, the reference to the common economy has also been removed. Third, common legal rights and duties for all members were replaced by common laws and customs. The other changes in Smith's definition noted by Gabernow is to remove references to common economy. She also questions whether the community economy refers to business activity confined to territorial boundaries of the nation, or does it mean a shared economy across national borders, an economy over which the nation has little or no control. Furthermore, if the nation is, as Smith points out, a kind of collective cultural identity, why should it include a shared economy as a key feature? After reading Smith's book, The Cultural Foundations of Nation, Gabernow states that Smith has indeed stopped emphasizing the importance of a shared economy to national identity. But he did not give up on that idea entirely. A common economy is in the best interests of states. Thus, if, as Max Weber argues, the nation is a community of sentiments that would appropriately manifest itself in a state of its own, a nation is a community that normally tends to produce a state of its own. This is a certain limitation and change observed by Gabernow. Let me now turn to the debates and limitations of Smith's concept of nationalism. In this regard, the following are the arguments that scholars and experts have made in relation to Anthony Smith's definition of nationalism. Smith's focus on historical and evolutionary aspects of nationalism is also commendable. He argues that nationalism is not a static phenomenon, but a dynamic process that evolves over time. By studying nationalism within its historical context, Smith provides a valuable insights into how national identities emerge and transform, shedding light on the complexities of nationalist movements. However, there are some limitations and criticisms of Smith's concept of nationalism. One criticism is his tendency to generalize and homogenize nationalist movements. Smith's framework often treats nationalism as a uniform and coherent phenomenon, overlooking the significant variations and diversities within nationalist movements across different regions and historical contexts. This oversimplification can lead to an oversight of the complexities and contradictions within nationalism. Additionally, Smith's emphasis on cultural factors sometimes overlook the political and economic dimensions of nationalism. While cultural identity is undoubtedly a crucial component, neglecting the role of power dynamics, political structures, and socio-economic factors can provide an incomplete understanding of nationalism. Political and economic motivations often intertwine with cultural factors, shaping nationalist movements and their objectives. Furthermore, Smith's concept of nationalism has been criticized for its lack of a normative framework. While he provides a descriptive analysis of nationalism, he does not engage deeply with the ethical or moral implications of nationalist movements. This can limit the ability to evaluate and critique the potential negative consequences of nationalism, such as exclusionary practices, ethnic conflicts, or the suppression of minority rights. Nevertheless, it is important to underline that despite certain limitations, Smith's concept of nationalism offers valuable insights into the social and cultural foundations of nationalist movements. Now let me turn to the critical analysis of Benedict Anderson's concept of nationalism. Benedict Anderson's influential book, Imagined Communities, introduced the concept of nationalism as an imagined political community. He argues that nations are not natural or pre-existing entities, but rather social constructions created through shared narratives and collective imagination. Anderson emphasizes the role of print capitalism and the development of mass media in fostering a sense of belonging and solidarity among people who may never physically meet. While Anderson's focus on the role of communication technologies and cultural production is valuable, it has also been criticized for overlooking material conditions and power dynamics that underpin nationalism. His emphasis on the imagined nature of communities can overshadow the ways in which political elites deploy nationalism to consolidate power or exclude certain groups. Additionally, Anderson's concept of nation as a homogeneous entity ignores the internal divisions and conflicts that often exist within nations. A number of authors have criticized Benedict Anderson's work. However, in this lecture, the criticism will be discussed with reference to Omid O. Kimmerly and Anthony D. Smith. Omid summarizes the 5 main objections to Anderson's account. First, it is culturally reductionist. Second, his arguments about the connection between nationalism and religion fail in certain cases. Third, his thesis that nationalism originated in America is at odds with the available evidence. Fourth, his example of official nationalism are incorrect. Fifth, he misreads the rise of anti-colonial nationalism. However, despite this criticism, Omid's objections do not challenge Anderson's central thesis that sacred languages uniting religious communities characterized the medieval period. Nations could only emerge with the decline of sacred language as print capitalism encouraged or even required standardized vernaculars. Anthony D. Smith points out that the idea of the imaginary community has detached itself from its Andersonian anchors. He points to the fact that in the text Imagined Communities, print capitalism could only contribute to the creation of imaginary community if certain conditions had been met, including the decline of holy monarchies and cosmological communities of writing. Smith makes some additional criticism, reminding us that the medieval historian Leslie Johnson pointed out that the medieval people had clear notions of linear time, in contrast to Anderson's Messianic times, as did other ancient peoples such as the Jews and Greeks. Smith does not, however, dispute the assumption that sacred languages existed in the Middle Ages. Charles D. Smith is equally critical of the use of imaginary term community, due in large part to the questionable historical analysis of some authors' use of imaginary community concept. In redefining the Egyptian nation, Smith reanalyzes the historical data presented in that work and shows that the Egyptian evidence contradicts Anderson's theory. The emergence of the print capitalism in the 20th century does not foster a secular consciousness that supplants religion. Rather, it encourages its reproduction. Smith challenges the uncritical assumption that Anderson's theoretical construct is exact. He states that taking Anderson's claims for granted and setting the parameters of discussion within which one can demonstrate the affinity of those subject to them precludes a critical assessment of suitability of his hypothesis. Rather than seeing Egyptian nationality as imaginary, Smith believes that the Pharaonic era contributed to the distinctiveness of medieval Egypt and in turn laid the basis for modern nationalist identity. Although print capitalism encouraged a variety of communities, some of which were extraterritorial and religious, the idea of a territorially limited Egyptian can be grasped by tracing the state back further than the emergence of print capitalism and modernity. Moreover, Anderson's concept of imaginary communities tends to overlook the material conditions and power dynamics that underlie nationalism. While acknowledging that nations are constructed, not natural, he does not pay enough attention to the ways in which nationalism is often manipulated by political elites to retain power or exclude certain groups. Nationalism can be a tool to enforce hierarchy, oppress minorities, or legitimize discriminatory practices, and this aspect is somewhat underrepresented in Anderson's analysis. Another criticism of Anderson's focus on print capitalism and the mass media as the main drivers of nationalism may not fully explain the diversity of historical contexts and the ways in which nationalism has manifested itself in different societies. The role of religion, language, ethnicity, and other factors can also have a significant impact on the development and dynamics of nationalism, but these are not explored extensively in his work. Now let me turn to another important component of this lecture, which is about the critical evaluation of schools of nationalism. Before I give a critical evaluation, I would like to briefly talk about the prominent schools and theories of nationalism. The fundamental theories or schools of nations that have been extensively examined from the 19th century to the present day encompass primordialism, perennialism, modernism, and ethno-symbolism. These theories provide valuable insights into the understanding of nations and their formation. Primordialism posits that nations are deeply rooted in a primordial attachments such as shared language, culture, and history. According to this theory, these attachments are innate and enduring, forming the foundation of national identity. Perennialism, on the other hand, emphasizes the enduring nature of nations but attributes their existence to a combination of historical, cultural, and geographical factors. This theory suggests that nations evolve over time, shaped by various influences, yet maintain a sense of continuity. Modernism challenges the notion of nations as timeless entities, asserting that they are products of modernity. This theory argues that nations are constructed through deliberate efforts such as political mobilization, education, and mass media. Modernism highlights the role of individuals and institutions in shaping national identities. Ethno-symbolism explores the symbolic aspect of nationhood, emphasizing the significance of myths, rituals, and symbols in fostering a sense of belonging and collective identity. This theory recognizes the importance of cultural practices and shared symbols in the formation and maintenance of nations. Each of these theories offers unique perspectives on the origins, continuity, and construction of national identities, shedding light on the multifaceted nature of nations throughout history. However, like any theoretical framework, they have their strengths and limitations. Here is a critical evaluation of these theories, and let me begin by primordialism. Primordialism posits that nationalism is rooted in deep-seated primordial attachments such as ethnicity, culture, or biology. While this theory recognizes the emotional and affective aspects of nationalism, it tends to oversimplify the complexities of national identity formation. Primordialism often overlooks the role of historical, social, and political factors in shaping national identities, and it can reinforce essentialist and exclusionary views of nationhood. Modernism. Modernist theories emphasize the role of modernity, industrialization, and state building processes in the emergence of nationalism. They argue that nationalism is a product of modern social and political structures. While this perspective captures the historical context of nationalism's rise, it may overlook pre-existing forms of identity and overlook the agency of individuals and communities in shaping national consciousness. Modernism can also downplay the significance of cultural and historical continuities in national identities. Third is perennialism. Perennialism is also known as a perennial nationalism. While the perennialism theory offers some insights into the enduring appeal of nationalism, it has several limitations and faces critical evaluation for the following reasons. First, perennialism tends to essentialize national identity by emphasizing its fixed and unchanging nature. This perspective overlooks the dynamic and fluid aspects of national identities, which are shaped by historical, social, and political factors. It ignores the role of individual agency and the ability of societies to redefine or reconstruct national identities over time. Second, it often fails to provide a nuanced analysis of the specific historical and socio-political contexts in which nationalism emerges. It does not sufficiently consider the impact of colonialism, globalization, economic factors, or other external influences that shape national identities and nationalist movements. By neglecting these contextual factors, perennialism fails to explain the variations in nationalism across different regions and time periods. Thirdly, it downplays the existence of diverse ethnic, linguistic, and religious groups within nations, as well as the complexities of intercultural dynamic and hybrid identities. This approach can lead to exclusionary practices, discrimination against minorities, and the suppression of cultural diversities within nations. Finally, the theory overlooks the political and power dynamics that shape nationalism and fails to acknowledge that nationalism is often contingent upon specific historical circumstances and events. National identities and movements are frequent responses to colonialism, territorial disputes, conflicts, or other transformative historical processes. Perennialism's emphasis on timeless national identity overlooks the contingent nature of nationalism and its historical evolution. The fourth is ethno-symbolism. While ethno-symbolism provides valuable insights into the cultural dimensions of nationalism, it tends to reduce complex and multifaceted identities to cultural symbols and traditions. It emphasizes the primacy of cultural markers in shaping national identity, while overlooking other important factors such as political, economic, and historical dimensions. By focusing essentially on cultural symbols, ethno-symbolism may overlook the fluidity and diversity of identities within ethnic groups and fail to capture the complexity of contemporary nationalisms. Moreover, it has limitation in terms of oversimplifying identities, neglecting power dynamics, and struggling to analyze contemporary forms of nationalism. A critical evaluation of ethno-symbolism necessitates a broader understanding of nationalism that considers multiple factors, including politics, economics, history, and power dynamics, to provide a more comprehensive analysis of complexities of nationalism. Dear students, while concluding this lecture, we can say that it is crucial to acknowledge that the criticisms directed towards Anderson, Smith, and other schools of nationalism do not diminish the significant contributions they have made to the field of nationalism. Nevertheless, these criticisms underscore the necessity for a nuanced and context-specific comprehension of nationalism that considers the multiplicity of experiences and perspectives across various societies and historical epochs. Dear students, with this, I would like to wrap up today's topic. I am sure that it has been a valuable learning experience for you and has sparked your interest in the subject matter. I look forward to our next meeting where we can explore a new and exciting topic. Until then, take care and goodbye.